Welcome to Two Stage Hands.
And a microphone.
I'm Disco. I am a stagehand.
I'm Sean Finnegan. I have been stagehanding since 2016.
Compay!
Kind of a continuation of last week's discussion about the Iron Maiden show. We talked Iron Maiden last week, right?
We talked about Iron Maiden.
Since that show, the original Iron Maiden singer, Paul Di'Anno, don't know if you can see that, we'll do an insert.
Yoink.
Paul Di'Anno passed away at the tender age of 66.
Uh-huh.
And then today, we lost bass player for the Grateful Dead, Phil Lesh, tender age of 84. So
we were listening to those before this episode
That's right.
started.
We listened to a little Phil Lesh and friends as we were getting our lights set up and everything. So, yeah, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too. Sean Finnegan and Disco Barilli. Two stagehands and a microphone.
I see you're wearing the ELO loadout.
Yeah, I was a loader for the whole show, so I was,
Right.
Stuck in the truck. One of the few people who were
Truck loader, yes.
allowed in the truck. On the. If you're not on that team, you stay.
If
out
you're
of the
not
truck.
on that team, you don't even want to set a foot in the truck.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they'll just chop it off.
Right. I mean, I think that has to do with they're at a different pay rate or something like that.
I
And
think
so,
it's some union thing, too.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can't walk in there, so that's right. And this right here, I got the Metallica jersey from when they played. This was 2018.
Wow.
Off the Hardwired to Self-Destruct album. And what I love about this, we'll do an insert on this too, but the chorus of their most recent album on that tour was, "We're so fucked, shit out of luck, hardwired to self-destruct." So if you look at this, it says, "We're so fucked, shit out of luck, hardwired to load those trucks."
Wow, I do love
That's
that.
pretty awesome.
I do, yeah, the pun with that is phenomenal.
Got to give it to Metallica on
I
the
will
puns.
give it to Metallica. That's well done.
So, I was actually going to ask you something, just a little bit of a improv tonight. Tell me about your experience with Iron Maiden just as a fan. Like, when did you first know of them? Because I remember when we first met, it was a band we both liked that we had in common.
It was my stepbrother's favorite band.
Got it.
And so-
Older than you?
Older than me by
Always
about 3 years.
Gotta
right?
have that
And
older
so-
dude. Or
Yeah.
a woman who turns you on to the music.
And so it was kind of like our interest in like Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy, and I want to say it's those album covers that sucked me in. And then when I heard songs like Rime of the Ancient Mariner that went on and used some of like Samuel Taylor Coleridge's classical references and its anti-war stance by just showing about like the evil and horrors of war.
Right.
I mean, they're turning 50 next year, the band Iron Maiden, that is. And so this was their 49th
they've been around 50
year.
years.
Yeah,
Next year, it's
next
50
year
years.
will be their 50th. So, it shows my age as a tender young youth.
I
looking up to
saw
my
them
brother.
on the Power Slave tour in '85 at the Cow Palace with Twisted Sister opening. Mm-hmm. I remember the singer Twisted Sister was yelling something in the mic, and that San Francisco crowd did not care for Twisted Sister. And they were doing a fine show. They had an unusual look, Twisted Sister, but other than that, they were a super competent band.
I love Twisted Sister.
A lot of people do. Pinky from work, I think it's his favorite band. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Dee Snider saying something to the crowd because we'd pushed to the front at this point when there's open festival seating back there where everyone would just crush to the front. And I'll never forget, someone took a red high-top Converse sneaker and just pegged him under the chin, and he just wrapped his face back, and he just threw down the mic and was like, "Fuck you guys," and they all left. And of course the crowd was throwing stuff, pelting at him, and 30 seconds later, and I'm not kidding you, 30 seconds later, Iron Maiden came on stage and everyone was like, "Okay, Maiden's here." And they were just great like that. They did it with Guns N' Roses the same way. It's like the opener doesn't work out, Iron Maiden doesn't make you wait another half hour to see what's going to happen. They just calm the savage beast.
a dead stage is really a sad thing, and no one wants that.
It used to happen though in a lot of concerts growing up. I remember being long lag times between bands, and you'd just be like agonizing, going, "It's getting later. Come on, guys," you know what I mean? And then they come on, you'd be so grateful. So you listen to Iron Maiden, I can totally see the Dungeons and Dragons things, especially since Bruce Dickinson's been in the band from album approximately 3, maybe you call it album 4 if you consider this EP they did called Made in Japan.
Was Power Slave the one with the ancient Egyptian
Yeah.
ones?
Power
Because
Slave
that's the
was
one
the
that I
Egyptian
really
theme.
love.
Was that your kind of intro album, maybe?
I think the actual Live After Death was mine.
Right. That was
listening
right
to-
before Power Slave, or maybe it was right after.
It was early on, but yeah, kind of.
Were Power Slave songs on Live After Death?
I want to say there was, yeah.
So I think it was
I think
after.
it would, but it was just. It's one of the few albums that I think captures the energy of an Iron Maiden concert, whereas some of the studio stuff doesn't. Because I think a crowd.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that. You're right. I mean, I love their studios. I'm a weirdo in that I love studio albums too. Like for the Grateful Dead, a lot of people don't even listen to their studio albums. Old fans, they're just listening to live stuff. And I love listening to the live cuts of the Grateful Dead. And it's almost sacrilege to some people to put on a studio version of the album, because sometimes I like to hear crisply all the nuance in a song before I really get to hear it live.
It is my preference to hear a studio album.
Yeah, that's all.
It is rare and few and far between, which is why Live After Death stands out. That I appreciate.
So well done.
Yeah,
And you're like, this elevates the material.
it does, and there are few. Because they're so raw in their kind of mixing, because you have the muddiness of the crowd in the room, it captures that singular moment in time a little bit better, but it has to be captured properly or it's just mush, right?
Right.
And so there's I think Scottish band called Silly Wizard. They have a Silly Wizard live, phenomenal. Andy M. Stewart is kind of the lead singer on it. If you like, Scottish or Celtic or kind of traditional music, I highly recommend Silly Wizard. His stuff.
Silly Wizard.
Silly Wizard.
That's really great.
But yeah, they
great
also have a live album that just transcends their material because of the energy in the crowd is just felt in the performance, and the recording transferred that well enough. And I don't think that happens very often in, recordings of that. Or at least it doesn't have that same feeling that I get from a studio album, hearing exactly what the musician wants.
Right.
And sometimes
sometimes that separation between the sounds of studio, and you lose some of that live.
And I think that's especially true for those original 70s rockers that are very interested in that analog tone and tone.
I love analog.
And tube. And I think some of that muddiness and warmth transfers better in a live setting than some of the mechanical studio processes or, digital ones that we have now.
Yeah, you could totally be right. And it's like, even like the later Iron Maiden songs that they were playing at the show the other night, I didn't know the later songs. I mean, like, let's say last 10, 15 years, I didn't know any of them, and it was weird. And there was one about the Celts, and I thought that was cool. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I could see how if you're into D&D, Maiden in a weird way was like the perfect band, for Lord of the Rings and D&D.
And growing up in the 80s and 90s, we're in the backdrop of Vietnam, we're in the backdrop of World War II.
Well, that's what was cool about metal in our generation was like, I wished my parents were hippies growing up, because I grew up in San Francisco and I was born in the 60s in San Francisco, but they weren't. And when I asked my mom why, my mom was heavy into jazz, that's why I got the Miles Davis. She made me a jazz fiend. I love jazz. And I love the band she turned me on to. Love them. But she was never into rock and roll until the last 30 years as she got older. And just some music, Fleetwood Mac, stuff that sounds Steely Dan, something that isn't too abrasive, But one time I said, hey, Mom, how come you weren't into the Beatles in the 60s? And she leaned in and she goes, how come you're not into New Kids on the Block?
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay. So
Shots
Iron
fired.
Maiden, the intricacy of Iron Maiden that I fell in love with was like the Miles Davis intricacies that she fell in love with. It was just more complex music. And Maiden is complex playing. I mean, those guys are working their ass off. And they played great for 70 years old.
They did.
I remember the first Maiden song, we were talking about this right before we started filming, was Rumors in the Rue Morgue, which we just looked up. And a Rue Morgue is the street that the morgue is on. And it's also a short story by Edgar Allan Poe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's like, I remember just, and then when I saw that Paul Di'Anno died, I mean, I'm 55, the guy's 11 years older than me. It was really like, wow, man, like, what a trip. And then today, seeing that Phil Lesh died from the Grateful Dead, you know, it was like, I remember seeing the Grateful Dead for the first time, not wanting to be into them, and they blew my mind, and I was a Deadhead that night. Just a classic Deadhead story. Went kicking and screaming to the concert, fell in love with the music at the concert, had 3 CDs the next day.
Wow.
So, Paul Di'Anno and Phil Lesh, big legends this week gone.
Mm-hmm. To our noble selves, there's damn few of us left.
I love it. What's your next show you're working?
The next one I have coming up is Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah, comedian, big comedian.
Big comedian.
Yeah.
I'm working spotlight operator for that, so I
Right.
will be able to see the entire performance. Kind of excited
Spotlight,
to.
very crucial for a comedian, even more than I think rock band.
Yeah, and I mean,
Because that guy
Spotlight-
can be stalking the stage, you know. You got to
Mhm.
stay on him, you know.
And there's the adage of, you know, like the talent. The people are there to see one person, right? Or, you know,
Usually.
a group of people. So,
Or that singer, or the guy with the guitar.
yeah, highlight them when they're, you know, at their peak. And so you don't have that visual fatigue, right? They're walking around and you have those beams
Yes.
of light.
Visual fatigue, man. Good combo of words.
Those corpuscular rays just
Oh,
shooting
shit.
through.
Corpuscular. Damn, you said it.
Especially with that right
One
layer
thing
of
I
haze.
found so strange about Iron Maiden was, you know, I'm 55, you're what, 46?
46, yeah. Next week and a half I'll be 47, so.
So many people we work with are 24 and 27, and no one that age, I'm talking no one I talked to that night, knew who Iron Maiden was.
Huh.
Isn't that a trip? People in their 30s knew,
Right.
but no one in their 20s knew who Iron Maiden was.
Wow.
Like, you know, I've heard of them. You can just tell it was just this vague reference. And even if you grew up and you weren't into Iron Maiden, my
Right.
mom knows who Iron Maiden is, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's like their huge impact on the culture. You knew that the singer Bruce Dickinson pilots the plane that they fly around the world in?
He's got a pilot's license? That's
Not only does he have a
amazing.
pilot's license, he left Iron Maiden for a while in the 90s. They had some other guy come in and sing. It didn't really work with the fans, you know? I think he was gone about 6 years. And he became a pilot with Virgin Airlines.
Huh.
That's why he can pilot a big 747 or whatever they're flying around in. Isn't that wild? So he doesn't have beers after the show. He gets on the plane.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? And pilots the
That's
band.
kind of a cool little thing.
Yeah. Sitting down, kids. And now this message from
Sean Finnegan
at Amazon. You can find my book NorCal on Audible, Amazon hard copy, or a Kindle copy. That's NorCal by Sean Finnegan.
All the cool people are buying it.
We're back.
Action-packed conversation, folks. Sean Finnegan and Disco here, rocking the Casbah with you. Rock the Casbah.
Yes.
We're right near Portland. Oh, I like the way our background looks, by the way.
The skull.
I think our two shots getting better. What do you think,
Yeah,
folks?
yeah.
Thanks for being here for the evolution of our tech, which is very hastily thrown together.
Yes. It's
So-
what I had in my garage. And so parking downtown.
Yes. Oh God.
Sketch right now.
So true, man.
I mean,
Well, I don't. You know what I do with anything now? If I go into Portland, it's like a concert. I just factor in part of the night cost, an Uber. So then I don't have to fucking think about my car. I get dropped right in front, And right when I want to leave, I don't have to wait for anything. Don't have to come out of a parking garage. If I want to have a couple alcoholic beverages, I can without
makes a lot of sense.
worrying about driving. So the last ticket holder concert I went to, I think, was at Hayden Homes Amphitheater in Bend, Oregon last summer.
Wow.
I saw Stickfigure, which is kind of a modern reggae band, with another kind of funk reggae band called Pepper that I really like, both these bands. And it was beautiful. The Deschutes River is going right next to the amphitheater. You know, you're tilting a soda. You're smelling Mother Nature in the air. Everyone's dancing. There's plenty of room. Very chill staff. Very chill. Very chill vibe out there. I think it's just the Bend, Oregon vibe that kind of cascades over the crowd. And it's reggae music.
The higher elevation, people have a harder time breathing. It calms them down.
The higher
more.
elevation. Definitely. I was higher at that elevation for sure. And like I said, I think it's just the reggae vibe too. But I had not been to a concert. Where we work off in the Moda Center, the only concert I've ever been there to as a ticket holder was Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band 2017 farewell tour.
I've been to the Moda Center a lot, but I grew up around here. So
Yeah.
I saw Depeche
Yeah.
Mode.
Oh,
here.
great.
I saw them twice in there.
Saw Depeche
It's like
Mode
20 years
twice,
apart, too.
Me too.
Nine Inch Nails I saw
Oh,
in the Moda.
rad.
Alanis Morissette was the first
Oh, I
concert
just saw Alanis Morissette last summer. She's great live.
Yeah, so...
Alanis Morissette is great live. I didn't see that coming. I was there to see the Foo Fighters in Austin, Texas. Alanis Morissette's the opener. Mm-hmm. First off, she has a tribute to who? Taylor Hawkins, who died, Foo Fighters drummer. You know where the Foo Fighters got their drummer from? Alanis Morissette.
We covered this back in
Yes,
the
we
first
did.
episode. Yeah.
And anyway, she played, and she got that harmonica. Every episode, I might just make a shout out to Alanis Morissette. Might be a thing I do. Just go see Alanis play that harmonica. I did not know the woman played the harmonica.
Well, I mean, she is God, at least, or was represented.
She was
that.
God in the movie Dogma.
Yeah, exactly.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah, and hopefully going to see the light of day with Kevin Smith and all. Anyway, I wanted to bring you something from the Foo Fighters.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know
Dude,
you
you
weren't
know where
able
that's
to-
going.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going on the
So
fridge
a
of
couple,
fame.
David Grohl and one of the other guys' picks from the Foo Fighters show.
Dude.
I was in Loader for the Black Line people who were so excited that they gave us the picks. It was
Oh
pretty
my God, you
amazing.
scored here, bro.
I figured you would enjoy them a little bit more than I do.
Dude, thank you, buddy. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, like you
And
said.
I became a fan through working for him.
Yeah, anyway.
Wow,
so
dude,
that's not
thank
something.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
We're
Why
gonna
don't
do
you
some
read?
vocal episode.
Why don't you read your helpful hints?
Oh yeah. So to preface this, we have a coworker, stagehand at the Moda, Jasmine, and started a document of things that I believe how not to get yelled at on your first day. It was
Okay.
how Jasmine
Okay.
phrased it. And
I
so
got it.
I thought that these would be interesting little segments, some illuminary things if you're in this industry, and just like some talking points. And so
Let's hear it, man.
that first one, don't go in the trucks. That is, unless you're a truck loader, of course. But guarantee your first day you're not going to be a truck loader.
Nope.
Yeah, absolutely
You're gonna
not.
be a pusher.
Yeah, it took me years to get this vest.
Loaders.
I have a loader shirt from The Cure too. I'm very excited.
Oh, that's
about.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Or no, it's a pusher shirt.
Just hammer down that list.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
hear them. Let's hear them.
Don't coil anything over your elbow. You know, the wraps where you just like grab it and that's horrible. We do like over under or figure eights or a variety of different coils.
Also,
but-
go on the ground a lot.
yeah, it
Because
depends.
it tends to fall easier, I find.
Right, and we often deal with thick looms and all sorts of different other things.
They got a
and
twist in 'em.
usually the tour folks
You
tell
got to do that
you.
every now and then, just do an over under because there's a twist built into it,
But
'Cause-
generally XLR or just basic
Hit
extension
me with the
cord.
next one.
Next one, don't yank on anything that hangs, including ropes, chains, and cables. Yeah, that's a good way to piss
Kinda
off the
common
riggers,
sense, but
right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You
What's
see a
the
rope
next
hanging from the sky; it's attached to
just-
somebody. Yeah, just yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, no.
See if they pay me more.
Yeah, exactly. Same with the chains. If they're not tied off, especially if it's being tended, that kind of stuff. Righty tighty, lefty loosey is a perennial classic.
I do that my whole life with everything. I've never stopped doing righty tighty, lefty loosey, and I don't know what that's about. There's always a moment where I go righty tighty, lefty loosey.
Yeah, I mean, there are often days when I'm going, all right, this is the L. That's my left side.
What's counterclockwise again?
Right,
things
yeah,
like that.
exactly. Which way is the clock going? So, yeah. Front of house is a specific place. It isn't just the front of a house, like in the front of the seats. Ask someone to show you where it is.
It's in correlation to the stage.
Right, but it moves, right? So if
I'm
it's
saying,
your
depending how
second
the
day,
stage
and
is positioned.
you're used.
You know what I'm realizing her list is like? Do you ever realize when we come back to work at night, sometimes you get put on a real loose crew without a strong leader?
Yeah.
And me and you, because we've done it a little while, you can walk out on that floor and kind of improvise your way into any department. Or just, even the department you're in, if you lose your people, you can figure out what to do. And I'll bet you if you're brand new, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's really easy to get mixed up, especially in the mornings when we're setting up. If we don't have like vests, or if we don't have shirts, or because we don't usually get separated out with markings until the end of the thing when we're closing down.
It is a strange
you
job.
can be asked to do something by another department lead, and you want
to hear the weirdest thing about, like, I call it like once a year, I notice a big push of new people getting hired. Mm-hmm. There's always one person, I know you've seen this before, who just doesn't do anything and just fakes like they're doing work. I've seen it every year as being a stage. I've seen one person a year who really isn't meant for the job, got the job somehow, and maybe he's just overwhelmed by all this and stuff, or maybe they're a paper pusher type personality more, but I've seen people just hang back, and I know because a few of us would find them and go, watch, and you just look over and they're positioning themselves near work, but they're not performing any work. I've seen it every year. One person.
They're work adjacent.
They're work adjacent. It's kind of fun. Must be on any job though,
Yeah, I think there's a percentage of it.
People just go, this isn't for me, but I need the job, or wow, this is too overwhelming. I mean, I could see that.
People like to take standing by as an art form.
Right.
And are very displeased when you interrupt their standby status.
I'm standing by. I'm working hard and standing by.
Exactly. And,
my
and
God.
especially on the carpenters.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're on a small team and you have like 4 people, if one person's not on a deck, it's you really need your full crew on each of the corners or something like that. I mean,
what's another point here from her list? Let's check it out.
Hold cables by their heads, I would say by their tails, is the
by the tails.
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
Sure. Watch out for those tails.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never really had tails strike me. I think it's kind of common sense, but maybe common sense isn't all that common sometimes.
The thing is when you're knee deep in a box moving 4/0 cable looms, and you're struggling just to get the thing to go into a figure 8.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you yank this thing that has tension and it swaps you in the face.
I'm always on the lookout for that shit though.
Yeah,
my whole life,
exactly.
Anywhere, any place, I'm always on the lookout.
Or some of them have those wire mesh
Yeah,
grills around the
that
ends.
little
and
end
so
piece.
if you're not expecting
What is that about? What do you think the wire mesh does?
It's
Just
to
keeps it
prevent-
managed
It's to prevent wear and tear on the tail.
on the very tip, so there's no
because that's
shredding.
where the
Sure,
where
like
your
you
weakest
could, right?
point.
You could have shit peel right from that end, almost. You know what I mean?
It's mostly because that's the connection point that's different than everything else. So that's your weakest spot, because that's the point where people are grabbing it, and so it prevents a lot of the damage from people pulling it out from the cord rather than from the plug.
I love
And
it.
so that's what she's talking about, I think, is that don't yank on the cord yank on the tail or
Kind
on
of a
the
good
plug.
tip in life. If you're pulling your, electrical cord out of a plug, don't pull by the cord, pull by the plug
and
head.
the reason before it is because they're just screws holding those in with kind of pressure plates, and so if you're pulling this back, you're trying to pull it out by that squeezing tension, and you're just going to at some point loosen that cable up.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. What's the next one? People probably have no idea what we're talking about. I just
Yeah,
realized.
absolutely. Don't plug or unplug anything without being told to.
Totally.
So many times.
That's on a construction site too. That's on a TV
Yeah.
set was like that. Just don't.
Oh, I can imagine on a
be
TV
the
set.
person.
That
Oh.
would be. Oh God.
I've seen some horror stories.
Yeah.
What's another one?
Let's see. Don't push a box anywhere without being told to.
Yes,
Right?
a lot of people just want. A lot of young people. One thing I've seen this year with all these new hires is like, a lot of people like to push those boxes as fast as they can. Like they're showing off how hard they're working or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I've seen a lot of ankles crunched this year, dude. And
yeah.
it's like, dude, nothing has to go that fucking fast.
Especially not those deck cards.
No, you just keep it at a steady pace, man.
No, yeah.
And like, you don't want to clog that loading dock if it doesn't need to be clogged, and things need to go out in groups,
Right, all the
because they have to
access
be on
parts, yeah.
specific trucks and not go out on the wrong truck, which would totally screw something up at the next destination. So that's a good tip.
Or, they're using a motor box or steel cable or coming back to it or just, Yeah, it's just, they need to know where their stuff's at in order to set up the show, right? Don't climb anything without being asked to. Don't climb anything unless you feel safe doing so, even if asked to, right?
Dude, you know what my policy's been post 50? Mm-hmm. No climbing for Sean.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got a
Nice.
no climb policy.
Well,
I've climbed everything.
3 years in a week until I joined the No Climb 50 Club.
It's something to consider at 50.
Yeah.
It's just an option.
Well, my hands.
I've climbed things my whole life. I've jumped out of trees, no fear. Everything. I did it on job sites. I've had scaffolding collapse from under me 2 stories up. I've had some gnarly shit, and at one point I was like, you know what I'm not doing ever again? Climbing anything.
Yeah. Especially we're under concrete,
Right.
like a stage, or worse, at the Veteran Center, ice.
Fuck that.
Learn stage directions, including what a vom is, short for vomitorium, a large open space where people vomit into after a show.
Well, back in the day, I think it was kind of a Roman orgy thing, was it, to have the vomitorium?
I think it was.
They would feast so much and just
want to be able to continue.
overindulge. They would just puke to keep eating. That's so gross.
I'm not sure how much of an urban myth versus Romans, but I have also heard this story.
think-
So,
yeah, I
but
have
I
too.
wasn't there, so
It's got to come from somewhere, man.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't just throw vomit out there in a word.
No.
Greg is forklift operator at the Moda a lot.
Yeah, I
he's-
worked with Greg.
I worked with the Keller, and he knows that place like the back of his hand. And it was
That place has some interesting nooks and crannies.
that does, and I almost wish I had worked in a real theater like that more than a sports arena. Because of all the ropes and just all the different
fly
levels.
system, yeah.
Yes, all the different levels of staging that comes down. I wish I would have spent more time at the Keller.
I've done tons of different venues and schools. Schools are probably the best place, other than the Keller. In fact, Portland State seems like it's building another venue downtown as well to kind of take some of the Keller stuff while the Keller's going through that seismic retrofit. But like Lincoln Hall has a great fly system. I was on the construction team that kind of remodeled and reinforced some of the kind
Very
of stuff.
cool.
And then also PCC has some.
Have you ever been a ticket holder at a play at the Keller? Growing up here in
Oh
Portland?
yeah, absolutely. I saw Les Mis Rob there.
Did
as an
you really?
example.
How long ago was that?
30 years or
Okay.
something like that.
2 stagehands and a microphone with Sean Finnegan and Disco Brilli, with music produced by Mike Favero.